Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to share my review of Knave, second edition from Questing Beast Games. This is written by Ben Milton with artwork provided by Peter Mullen and maps provided by Lyle Latino. This 80-page special edition we'll be taking a look at carries an MSRP of $50. You can grab the standard edition for $35 or score just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. All that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the second edition of Knave. A few things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, Ben Milton was kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's very important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside Knave's second edition, as well as discuss how to play and how to run the game. Lastly, something else I want to address is something that I guarantee if I don't mention it, people are going to comment in the comment section about it. Yes, I do understand Questing Beast Games did sell copies of Knave's second edition at a convention. It was at GaryCon prior to backers receiving their copies. I do not agree with that. I do understand why, though. At least most of the time with small publishers, when they create a Kickstarter and it's successful and they get the copies in their hands and now they're getting ready to ship them out, they find themselves to be pretty cash poor. So I can certainly understand Questing Beast Games wanting to sell copies ahead of getting them into backers' hands because then it would give them a little more operating capital. Once again, I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying I understand it. Plus, I do also understand that Ben Milton's partner could have handled everything a little bit better online. There's that too. But I'm not going to harp on that. I just want to mention I am aware of it. So let's talk about Knave's second edition. This is a fantasy role-playing game. I would not call this part of the old school Renaissance. It's probably a little more new school than old school. It does have a lot of inspiration from old school fantasy role-playing games. Now, this is super rules light and very easy to get into. This evolved from Maze Rats, which I think was like 2 or 3 pages long, which Ben Milton came up with a few years ago. Then we had a first edition of Knave. Now we've got the second edition. And when I say this is rules light, if you take this information here and here, you are good to go to not only play, but run Knave second edition. I love that. That is so cool. And I know tons of people talk about all the random tables that are inside this book, and there are a slew. But this is a full-fledged game. Don't think for a minute that this is just a toolkit to use for old school fantasy role-playing games. It is not. It is a rule system in itself, very light, very intuitive, but it's not just random tables. So we are looking once again at kind of an old school flavor here. So we do have our traditional 6 attributes: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And rather than having the traditional range of 3 to 18, and then a lot of games using those to create modifiers, we just have modifiers. So you're going to start off at first level with 3 points that you can assign to any of the 6. You can assign more than 1 point to each attribute if you'd like. And if you want to be completely random, you can roll 3 6-sided dice and then add a point to the corresponding attribute. So as an example, 1 would be strength, 6 would be charisma. So once again, a lot of random tables. If you want to create a character that is absolutely random, you certainly can do that as well. Now, this is a classless fantasy role-playing game, And yes, I know there are a lot of people out there who feel that I have no class. Well, neither does Knave second edition. So you can create the sort of character, the sort of archetype you want to play. And I love that aspect of this. Now, when you level up, every time you go up a level, you will have 3 points to assign into your attributes. So the reality is you will have 0 to 10 points in your attribute. So having a strength of 4 actually means you're adding 4 to your 20-sided dice when you roll to achieve something related to strength. Very, very easy to understand. And once again, like I said, I love the fact that you are not locked into a class. So if you want a sword wielding mage, you certainly can. If you want someone who's more roguish, but also a healer or shaman type, you can do that. There is a random D100 table here to get a career. So it is the career that you came from before you began adventuring. Like that quite a bit too. Now, as far as encumbrance and wounds and hit points, very, very simple here. So as far as your encumbrance, we have seen this with Mausritter in the past. I always pronounce it that way. In fact, I usually say Mausritter. One of these days, I'm going to actually pick that up so I can do a review of it because I hear so many good things about it. But it does use an encumbrance system similar to that. So you will have your Constitution plus 10. That is the number of slots you will have. Two-handed weapon takes up 2 slots. 500 coins takes up a slot, and you'll go from there. So as a magic user, you will actually have spell books, and those spell books can be used once per day. So once again, right there, old school Vancian sort of flavor to it. And the only limit is how many spells you want to assign to your encumbrance slots. So if you have 13 slots and you want to have 10 spells and you're only second level, you certainly could. It's very easy to do that. So I like that. It gives the players a lot of flexibility in what sort of caster that they're going to be and how strongly they really focus on both divine and arcane magic. So as far as combat, you're looking at having hit points and then wounds. So starting off, you're going to have 1d6 hit points. As you level up, you'll get an additional 1d6. And you also have wounds. And those wounds are your encumbrance slots. So once you take damage and you no longer have any hit points left, then you start assigning wounds and you start knocking off the encumbrance slots. So, and of course, as you're losing encumbrance slots, you are losing those items that take up those slots. Now, you don't necessarily permanently lose them, although that is an option that is available. It just means you can't use them. This does have a rather lethal combat system. I'll get into combat in a little more detail in just a couple of moments. But as far as action resolution itself, what you're looking at rolling a 20-sided die. High is good, low is bad. Most people are familiar with that. And what you're going to do is, as a player, you'll roll a 20-sided die. You're going to add your attribute to that 20-sided die. Now, as the game master, you're going to take a number from 0 to 10. Average difficulty for something is going to be 5. You're going to add that to 11. And that is going to give you the difficulty number, the target number that the player needs to meet or exceed in order to succeed at what they're looking to achieve. Very, very simple as far as that goes. Now, of course, you could have magic items that might give you a bonus. So you'll have that to take into account. And of course, as you go up in level, you get to add those additional points to your attributes, making difficult things easier to achieve. As far as combat goes, combat is pretty easy as far as initiative. Each group's leader is going to roll charisma versus charisma. Whoever comes out on top is going to go first. There is a prize, of course. That is a possibility as well. Now, as far as the attack, if it's going to be a melee attack, it's going to use strength. If it's a ranged attack, it is going to use wisdom, not dexterity. And you're looking to meet or exceed an armor class, which is going to be 11 plus the number of armor points. So depending on the number of armor points that say an NPC would have or a monster has, it's 11 plus that. Very simple. If you meet or exceed that, you're going to do damage. You roll the damage die of the weapon that you used, and you're going to subtract that from hit points. Once hit points hit 0, then those encumbrance slots are coming off. Now, of course, NPCs and monsters don't have encumbrance slots. They just have hit points. But still, pretty easy to tackle that. Now, as far as critical hits and fumbles, we do have a 1 breaks the weapon. You have power attacks you can make too. If you hit and you make a power attack, you'll roll double damage, but you break your weapon. And then, interestingly enough, if you roll 21 or higher, so of course, to get a 21 or higher, you must have some sort of a magical weapon or something that's giving you a bonus, or you must have at least a point in strength. If you roll 21 or higher, not only do you hit, you get to also perform a maneuver, which is kind of cool, almost a little along the lines of a mighty deed from Dungeon Crawl Classics. So it can be a lot of different things. It's going to be up to the player, as long as it's not something that directly deals damage to their target. Combat, super easy to wrap your head around. In fact, the reality is, as a player, learning how to play Knave take you about 5 minutes. Probably no more than that. I really like the spells because we have tables for creating and generating spells. Spells do not have levels or circles or anything like that. Most of the spells are going to be built power-wise around intelligence. So the more points in intelligence, the more powerful the spell is going to be. So it doesn't matter if you are first level or fifth level. It depends on the number of points you have in intelligence. And we have 100 spells already created, and they're not just magic missile type of spells and fireball sort of spells. We get a lot of really cool sort of sword and sorcery styled spells, which I love. And once again, as I mentioned, we even have tables to create spells. Now, as far as divine magic works the same exact way. We've got your spell books. Those are the spells that are available to you. You can only use a spell book once per day, and that's it. So, like I said, super easy to learn how to play Knave 2nd Edition. Now, there is a lot of page space which is devoted to random tables, from putting together your dungeon itself to creating a bit more background for your player characters and NPCs, to creating spells, to creating potions. There is loads and loads of random tables. Now, I happen to be the type of game master, I like emergent play, but I also like to have an idea of what might happen depending on what my players do. You can easily approach Knave 2nd Edition that way, or you can utilize some of the later random tables to kind of generate things on the fly. So we've got some downtime rules, we've got hirelings and henchmen rules. Really no rules for domain play per se, but that doesn't really bother me at all. As far as our monsters are very short, concise as far as their bestiary entries. We also have tables to just randomly create your own monsters. But interestingly enough, the most important thing is what makes the monster different. And I think that goes for just about any fantasy role-playing game. And I talk about this all the time. We don't need to have 3 pages giving us the entire backstory of those monsters and how they came to be and what their goals are, what their dreams are, things like that. Not in an old school sort of fantasy role playing game. We need to know what makes this monster different than any other monster. And that is what the bestiary tackles here. But once again, a lot of cool tables here to roll up and create your own original monsters, including tactics, which I do like. So we'll also wrap up with a gameplay example, as well as where Ben Milton got a lot of inspiration for various different aspects of Knave Second Edition. And I really like this portion with the designer's commentary because you can see what other role playing games have really influenced Ben Milton, including like The Black Hack or Into the Odd. So, really like that as well. This is a very modular game. So, if you're looking at certain aspects of Knave that you like, you can use them. If there are things that you're like, I'm not too thrilled with the magic system, I want to use a different magic system, you certainly could. It's super easy to do so. And then, of course, we get a very small character sheet, very easy to fill out that character sheet. We get a cool dungeon map as well as a hex map. And there are rules for dungeon delving and encounters. I thought it was kind of cool. You have an encounter die that you roll. It's a 6-sided die. On a 1, there's an encounter. On a 6, nothing happens. But you can have things where the torch goes out or torches go out. Or maybe the adventurers find a sign of the next encounter that's coming up. So very cool. That is a peek inside Knave Second Edition. Let's swing on over to the other camera because I'm going to share some final thoughts and give this a review score. I think it comes across. I really dig what's in Knave Second Edition. I like how rules light it is. Super easy for both players and game masters to pick up and run with. This is a great introduction to kind of an old school vibe of fantasy role playing games without having to get into all of the mechanics of basic or expert or so forth. So I really think it has that going for it. Love all the random tables, but it's also important to keep in mind this is not just a random table toolkit, because that's what I've heard from some folks out there is there's been so much of a focus on the cool random tables that the fact that this is a full-fledged rule system in just a few pages kind of gets lost in the shuffle there. I do have a quibble though, and I am going to deduct a point off my final review score because of it. I got to be honest, $50 for this book I think is too pricey. $35 for the standard edition of an 80-page book is a bit pricey, especially when we take a look to see things that are available from like Exalted Funeral in hardcover or Space Penguin Inc. in hardcover. I think price-wise, this is overpriced. Even at $19.99 for the PDF, it's a little too pricey. But there's a lot of cool stuff inside Knave Second Edition. What I could personally see myself doing would be taking Shadow Dark and Knave Second Edition and mashing them together, because there are some modular aspects to Shadow Dark that I really like, and there are modular aspects of Knave Second Edition that I really like. And I think both of those together would make for a fantastic, easily learned fantasy role-playing game to introduce the old school style of gameplay. So, even though I do think that this book is overpriced, I like it a ton. So, on a score of 0 to 10, I give Knave Second Edition a 9 out of 10. I think it is that good. I think if you have any interest in a rules light, old school styled fantasy role playing game, It should be part of your collection, no doubt. Just a little overpriced. All right, that is it for this time out. If you liked the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.